he's not just touched the lives of millions of people, he's transformed the lives of millions of people. He's the author of many books, including Goals, which has transformed my life, and I'm certainly hoping that he'll sign before he leaves today. He's the CEO of Brian Tracy International, which website is briantracy.com, and we are absolutely honoured and delighted to have him here today. Brian, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Anthony.
Excellent. Brian, if we can just start with getting to know Brian Tracy, some of the sort of personal things about you. If we can just start with, where were you born, sir, and where do you live at the moment?
Well, I was born in eastern Canada during the war. My father was in the RAF and stationed in Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island. Okay. I grew up in Toronto, and then my family moved to California and back to Canada. I spent many years traveling, and now I live in California again.
Favorite cuisine or restaurant? Anything comes to mind?
You know, I have traveled now in 98 countries, and I like virtually everything. I like Italian food, I like Indian food, I like Mexican food, I like French food, I like everything. Thank you.
Airline food, presumably, as well.
Yeah, well.
Top vacation spot?
Hawaii is my favorite, but also also Austria and Switzerland.
Fantastic. And your favorite website, apart from briantracy.com?
It's probably Google, because I can get so much information so fast.
And your number one passion outside of changing the world and inspiring us all?
Well, I love to read, and I love my wife and children, so we spend a lot of time together. So I'm not working, I usually spend time with my family.
You're the world's expert at the psychology of achievement, amongst other things. But how did you get into this space? Was there an epiphany moment when you thought, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life?
Well, yes, I remember discovering something that was astonishing to me, and it was that your level of self-esteem or self-worth, your sense of personal value, the amount that you like yourself and respect yourself, determines the entire quality of your life. It determines the goals you set and how big they are. It determines how much you believe in yourself, which is how much you persist in your goals. It determines what you learn. It determines how much you like other people, how much they like you back. So the psychology of achievement is based around this concept that the more you do the things that make you feel good about yourself, which is setting goals, working toward them, treating people well, learning, taking good care of yourself, all the positive things that you do, raise your self-esteem, improve your self-image, improve the quality of your relationships with other people, and enable you to have a wonderful life. And that just set me off.
Yeah, great. And because you didn't come from you didn't inherit a significant amount of money, you didn't come from a sort of a particularly affluent early childhood, I think. You then...
No, I came from a poor background. My parents never had any money. They were working people. My father was a carpenter, my mother was a nurse. I left school without graduating. I worked at laboring jobs for several years, and then I got into sales when I could no longer find a laboring job, like most people in sales today. And then I started asking a question which changed my life. And the question is, why is it that some people are more successful than others? Why is this? And I looked around me and I saw people, now I was 23, 24, people younger than me doing better than me. And they weren't any smarter than me, and some of them were dumber. One of the things I say is that nothing will make you madder than to see somebody who's dumber than you, who's doing better than you. And you say, how can this idiot be doing so well? And I began asking this question. In selling, I began asking, why is it that some salespeople are more successful than others? And I did something that very few people ever do. I found later, is I went to the best salespeople and I said, how come you're so successful? And they told me what they were doing, and I did it. And I made more sales. And so people said, how come you're making so many sales? So I told them, and they did it, and their sales went up. And when I got into business, I asked managers, how do you manage in a business like this? How do you organize it? And they told me, and I did it. And so one of the greatest success principles that you'll ever find is learn from the experts. Learn from the people who are already demonstrating the results that you want to get. Read their books, listen to their programs, attend their courses, learn from, and ask them. And they will always tell you. And you can save yourself years of hard work by simply learning from people who've already learned it by themselves.
Yeah, fantastic. As I mentioned to you, you've studied and you've gone through and you've learned what is it that makes people highly, highly successful in whatever field there is. So we're going to go into some details later on, but sort of at a macro level, what are the top 2 or 3 things that world-class people do?
Well, world-class people have a much bigger vision of what is possible for them. One of the things techniques I learned many years ago from an expert was called X to 10X. X to 10X, which means imagine that you could go from X, your current income, to 10X, 10 times your current income. And your first response to that is that's completely preposterous. There's no way that I could increase my income 10 times.
Yeah.
It's not possible. So then I'll ask an audience, I'll say, well, is there any chance at all that you could increase your income by 10 times in the course of your lifetime? Is there maybe one chance in 1,000? Everybody will say, well, there's maybe one chance in 1,000. Okay, then I'll say, well, now how many people here from the time you took your first job until now have already doubled your income? Every hand goes up. Tripled, most hands go up. Quadrupled, lots of hands go up. I said, so you already doubled your income, tripled your income. So all you need to do now is do the same things that you did to double and triple your income, and you'll double and triple it again, and double and triple it again, and then you'll have increased your income 10 times. And there are people all over the world who are earning 10 times as much as you, and they're no better and no smarter than you are. And what this does is it explodes your thinking, because most of us begin to develop narrow thinking around our current income. And then we adjust our lives, we adjust our appetites, the restaurants we go to, the food we eat, the home we live in, the clothes we wear, the car we drive. We force our whole world to fit into our current income, whereas top people create a vision. Here's an interesting point. Peter Drucker said that if you do not have a vision to be a world leader when you start your business on your kitchen table, you'll probably never be very successful. So if you're starting your business on a kitchen table, imagine you could be a world leader. And then you ask the question, well, if I was the world leader in my field, how would I be different from today? How would my company be different from today? We were just talking earlier about Steve Jobs and Apple Computer. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak started out in a garage with an idea to put together pieces and make a little Apple computer that people could have at home. Bill Gates of Microsoft started off with this idea that if they could make it usable, you could have a PC on every desktop. Everyone's heard about that. That was his vision, a PC on every desktop in the world. When he said this in the late 70s, everybody said he must be crazy. The heads of the IBM were saying, there's no reason for anyone to have a computer at home. There's no reason for anyone to have a personal computer. And within a couple of years, they were literally avalanched out of the business because you find that everybody wanted a personal computer. The only question was the technology to build it and the programs to operate. Today, if you don't have a computer, you're living in the Stone Ages. People, your telephone is a computer. You have an iPad. You have a computer at home. You have a. So you start thinking of, if your business was world class, if you were world class, how would you be different from today? And then here's the key. This is the key. Take the first step. The first step is always the hardest step because it forces you, like a chick breaking out of an egg when it hatches. The first step forces you to break out of your comfort zone. And the comfort zone is so strong that probably 90% of people are held back from their full potential all their life because of this vice-like comfort zone. And when you take the first step, the only way you can do it is break out. And suddenly you see the second step and the third step and the fourth step. And then as you take the steps, your self-esteem goes up and your self-confidence goes up and you become more creative and you start to think of all kinds of ideas. And people say, what has gotten into you? I mean, what are you smoking? Because whatever it is, you should share it with the others. And so this is the difference between top people, is they have a big idea of what's possible and they take the first step.
Yeah. It's interesting because you talk about when you in your book Goals that people need to almost do magic wand thinking when they're writing their goals. It sounds like you're talking about there with a sort of an unbelievable vision. It sounds it's similar and linked to magic wand.
Yes. What I do is this: I take out my magic wand. I always have my magic wand, and I'll do this with every audience. I'll say the key to success is what is called future orientation. That means top people, top 10% of people, think about the future most of the time. They think about the future most of the time, and they practice a concept used by top people called idealization. They idealize, they imagine they have no limitations, and they imagine you could wave a magic wand and make your future perfect in every way. So we say there's 4 areas. The first area is, of course, your income, your career, your work. If it was perfect, if you're earning the kind of money you wanted, doing what you wanted to do with the people you wanted to do it, what would it look like 5 years from now, and how would it be different from today? And the same thing we say is with your relationships and your family. If your family life and lifestyle was perfect, how would it be different from today? I just spoke to somebody who asked this question. He was really shocked because he found that he was working 12-hour days. He was seeing his kids once or twice a week. His wife was frustrated and irritated. He'd come home late at night and he'd watch television. And he realized, the reason I'm trying to be successful is so I can provide a good life for my family. And here I am ignoring my family. So he began to idealize and say, if my family life was perfect, what would it look like? He said, I would have dinner with my family every night. And so he changed his schedule. So he got his work done, and he had dinner with his family every night. And then he would play with his children, and then he'd put them to bed, and then he would work later in the evening, and then go to bed at a reasonable time. He said, transformed his family life completely. And so, but if you don't think about these things, you'll just go on the same way forever, doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Ask if your health was perfect, how would it be different? And finally, if your financial situation was perfect in every way, how would it be different from today? And then, what is the first thing you could do, the first step, right now, to make your future life perfect in every way? And whatever it is, just take the first step.
Yeah. Interesting. Because it sounds like there you've got the visualization of, like, you know, the ideal future, which is a good thing for you to be doing for your subconscious anyway, but then also linking it down to what are we actually going to do next to deliver this. In terms of, you talk about in goals, you should write them all down. The key thing seems to be writing them all down.
Yes.
But in terms of goals, should you write them on, it's a very small practical point, but should you write them on pieces of paper, computers, media? Does it not matter necessarily where you write these goals down? Is there any thoughts on that?
Well, I teach a program, it's an advanced coaching and mentoring program to business owners. And I tell them that if you come and work with me for 1 year, I will show you how to double your income and double your time off within 12 months. And then what I do is I front-end load the first day of coaching so that they double their income within 30 days. Everybody does it. It's very simple. I hand them out a spiral notebook, like a school notebook, and I say, what I'm going to ask you to do is I'm going to ask you to write down 10 goals that you'd like to accomplish in the next 12 months. Write them in the present tense as though they are already a reality. Not I will earn, but I earn. And then at the end of it, write by and have a due date. I earn this amount by this date. I weigh this number of kilos or pounds by this date. I achieve this goal by this date. Now, when you write it down, you engage in what is called a psychoneuromotor activity, which is a 50-cent word, as we say. It's a big word. But what it means is that you see it when you're writing it, you sub-vocalize when you are speaking, you kinesthetically write it, and by doing the handwriting, you actually program it into the hard drive of your subconscious mind. And I've had people do this exercise once, and a year later, they found that list of goals, and they were astonished to find that 8 of the 10 goals had been achieved. I spoke to a gentleman recently, remarkable story. He said, after he had gone through my seminar, he heard me say, write down 101 goals that you want to accomplish in your lifetime. Well, he was about 24. He was struggling. He was poor. He had a used car, no money, unmarried, single, so on. So he went home that weekend. He got a spiral notebook. He wrote down 101 goals. Now, 12 years later, I'm coming back to the same city, Atlanta, Georgia. And so he came to my seminar. And he said, I have to talk to you. He said, because 2 weeks ago, I was going through my papers, and I found that notebook. And I said, there's that notebook I wrote so many years ago. And he took it out, and he said, I wonder how I did. And so he began looking, and he took out a pen, and he began ticking off the 101 goals. So, yes, I achieved that, and I achieved that, and I achieved that. He said, Brian, and he started to cry. He started to shake. He said, Brian, I had achieved all 101 goals in 12 years. One of my goals was to marry a beautiful woman, which I did. To have children, which I do. To start my own business, which I did. To become a millionaire, which I am today. To own a new Mercedes, which I have. To put my children in private schools, which I did. To travel around the world, to learn a language, to sing a song, to learn to speak. He said, it was unbelievable. He said, not 100. 101 goals had been achieved in 12 years. He said, it was overwhelming to him. He could not believe it because I had told him, if you write them down, it's like programming them into your subconscious mind, where they then begin to work 24 hours a day while you're doing other things.
Great. So a spiral notebook and a pen.
Yes.
And some imagination and some discipline each morning. Talk about each morning. Do you say that should you look at your goals then every single morning? I know that you say you're a big believer in going to bed early, waking up early, reading, nourishment for the brain, and then looking at the goals. Is that?
What I do is I rewrite my goals every morning.
Okay.
I carry a spiral notebook. I have stacks now over the years. And every morning I get up, when I do a little bit of reading, I exercise, and then I'll open my book and I'll write down the goals. Now here's the key. Do not refer to the previous day. What you do is you turn it over and you rewrite your goals again today. Now here's what will happen. When you first write down 10 goals, they will be the first things that occur to you. The next day when you write them down without reference, you will change the order. You may actually drop off one or add something else. The wording will change in the goals, which is very important because your subconscious mind is activated by the precision of the words that you use. And so you'll find yourself writing the goals differently and in different order and sequence. And at a certain point, you'll find yourself every morning writing the same 10 goals, like that. And then, one by one, they'll start to be achieved and replaced by a new goal. And a year from now, it's almost like if you decided to exercise and lose weight a little bit each day, a year from now, you could be as fit as an Olympic athlete. A year from now, you will have accomplished so much, it will be astonishing to you. You know, and people say, well, it sounds really good, big American motivational speaker and so on. They say, but what if it doesn't work? I say, no, that's the wrong question. What if it does work? All it costs is a spiral notebook, a pen, and a few minutes a day, maybe 5 minutes. What if it could transform your life, as it has done for millions of other people, with no exceptions, in 56 countries where I've spoken? So if it works for everybody, everywhere in the world, it'll probably work for you. All it takes is 5 minutes a day. And it's really a test of how much you really want those goals, is do you have the discipline to rewrite them every day? If you will do that, that front loads the entire success process. Do you know the very act of writing goals raises your self-esteem, it improves your self-image, it increases your self-confidence, and it activates your creative mind. You start to see all kinds of ideas and ways to achieve the goals that you've written. It's so powerful, it's literally life-changing, that one technique.
And should you, when you're with the spiral notebook in the morning, should they be the day's goals, week goals, year goals, or just the key ones?
Well, it's not a time planner.
No.
It's just, it is your goals for the foreseeable future.
Okay.
Now, when I say start off, write down 1-year goals. If you have more confidence, you can write down 5- and 10-year goals. But I have never written a goal that I didn't achieve. And I've gone from literally from rags to riches, from being broke to being worth an enormous amount of money. And it was exactly what I wrote down. the car, the home, the family, the business. Everything I wrote down eventually came true. And everybody I speak to says, it all comes true eventually.
Yeah. A lot of the things you say, I guess, Brian, linked to cause and effect. You're
Yes.
telling us that you can do things. It's proven. It's tried and tested. If you follow these methodologies,
Yes.
then you can have the same effect. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
The same results.
Yes.
But one of the things, I went to one of your courses. I was lucky enough to go to one of your courses last year, where you were saying that when it comes to achieving greatness, you don't have to be significantly better than the people around you or your competitors. You have to be marginally better. And you were talking about a metaphor about a horse race, and you could say it a lot better than I can, but it really had an impact on the audience. So can you just...
Well, we call this the winning edge technique. We find that top people have edges. They're a little bit better. Just like the Olympic athletes win by an inch, they win the gold, and the person who comes in 2 inches later doesn't even appear on the winner's stand. The winning edge concept says that a horse that wins in a horse race by a nose wins 10 times the prize money of the horse that comes in second by a nose. And now, is the horse that comes in first 10 times faster, 10 times better, 10 times anything? No, just a nose faster. A nose can be an inch or two in a photo finish, and it can make the difference between world championship and forgotten. Top people, and the research that's coming out now since the last time we were together, shows that the best people in every field, the ones that go from the bottom to the top in their careers, are people who engage in a concept called deliberate practice. Now, this is a breakthrough concept. It's like quality circles. It's a whole new concept in business. Deliberate practice means that, like a sniper, they select the one skill that today can help them the most to be the most productive, to make the greatest contribution where they are right now. And they ask around, if I was really good at one skill, You know, the magic wand concept? If I was really good at one skill right now, which one skill would help me the most at this stage of my career? And your boss can tell you, your coworkers can tell you, your staff can tell you, but you've got to know, because this is the key. It's almost like you're trapped in a room, there's one door out. The one door is the most important skill that you can learn. If you learn all the other skills, you go out through all the other doors, nothing will improve for you. But if you get really good in this one skill today, it can really help you. Sometimes it's understanding financial statements. Sometimes it's negotiating. Sometimes it's being really excellent in meeting management. Sometimes it's good at public speaking. Sometimes, you never know what it is, but people around you know what it is, and in your heart you know what it is. But here's the point. All business skills are learnable. All business skills are learnable. That means you can learn any business skill. And the point is, you must never allow yourself to be held back in your career, to be trapped in the room with the doors all ready to be opened with the keys and the locks. You must never allow yourself to be trapped because you lack a business skill. And many people, give you a very simple example, delegation. The ability to delegate intelligently and well to the right person in the right way, the right job, and make sure it's done, is an absolutely essential executive skill. If you do not have it, you cannot survive or succeed as an executive. You must be replaced or carefully supervised, because you will never get results through other people, the definition of management. But delegation is a learnable skill, and every successful executive is excellent at delegating. They're excellent at selecting the right people, working with them to get clarity about the right job and what needs to be done, making sure that they have everything that they need, and then backing away and letting them do it. Because if you can't delegate a task, you must do it all yourself. And a lot of managers say, well, if you want it done right, you have to do it yourself. No, if you want it done right, you have to delegate it well to someone else and make sure that they do it. So it's just that one skill, and there's a series of management skills, can transform your entire career. I have had senior vice presidents working for me that I've had to fire because they could not delegate. Every single time they handed out a task, it fell on its face. Another task is planning. They could not plan, they were disorganized all the time. Another task is measuring. They could not set measures or standards so that nobody knew what target they were aiming at. So people were always at each other's throats because there were no standards. I mean, these are little things. You think, well, of course, those are absolutely essential. And they're all skills, and they're all learnable. And that's the great breakthrough. You can learn any skill you need to develop the winning edge in any field that you're in.
Let's talk about learning for a second. I mean, you're a master teacher, but in terms of your students, is there any technologies or any advancements in terms of how people can best learn?
Yes. Well, first of all, the human being is an automatic, a natural learning organism. A child in the first 3 to 5 years learns to coordinate 26 senses. They learn 5,000 words. They learn how to read 100 different facial expressions, so they know exactly what people are thinking and feeling. They know how to interact and get along with others. They learn at 30 times the adult rate in the first 3 to 5 years. But there's no reason why adults cannot learn at a rapid rate as well. It's like breathing in and breathing out. And so you find your most successful people, we say all leaders are readers. All leaders are learners, because they recognize that whatever got you to where you are today is not enough to get you any further. You've got to be continually upgrading your skills. And sometimes one new idea at the right time, if it's the right idea for you, will save you 5 years of hard work. I was listening to an audio program last year, and I heard one concept on that audio program about business success that triggered a whole series of ideas of how you could implement that process. It's a very simple idea, and it's based on this, is that 90% of all business success is having a great product to start with. It was just a throwaway line in an interview. And I stopped the CD, and I started thinking about that, and my mind was churning. Just look at all the struggle we work for in business. We start a business, we're working, we're in competition. But 90% of your success is having a great product. And a perfect example is the iPod, iPhone, iPad. Every time people use this, what do they say? They say, this is a great product. The car that brought me over here today, Michael, the driver, has got an iPad. And he said his wife got it for him for Christmas. He said, this is a great product. He said he can't live without it. Well, So I said, how do you measure how successful you are going to be in business? How do you predict your business future? It's very simple. It's the percentage of times that your customers, after using your product or service, say, this is a great product. This is a great service. This is a great company. Because without exception, all successful businesses trigger that response. So you can take every planning and organizing, upgrading your skills, learning, staff, customer service, sales, marketing, everything comes right down to this: how often people say, after consuming your product or service, this is a great product. We went to a wonderful Indian restaurant just around the corner from the hotel last night. So we said to the concierge, is there an excellent restaurant around here? He said, what kind of food would you like? Obviously, we said, well, how about Indian food? They said, yes, one of the best Indian food restaurants in London is just off Gloucester Road. It's about a 5-minute walk. So we walked down there, and we walked in, and we sat down. Beautiful decor, high ceilings, beautiful lighting. We sat down, and the food and the service were outstanding. And what we said is, this is a great restaurant. I mean, we want to come back here. We want to come back and bring our friends. We want to bring our spouses. We want to tell other people to come here. If you can trigger that reaction in your customers, then your future is guaranteed. Now, important point. No company starts off with a product or service that triggers that reaction. The first product or service may satisfy some people, but now you just improve it. You just continue to improve it until you hit that critical point where people start saying, geez, this is a great product. Then you know you've hit it. And every product has to trigger that. And they don't start off that way. You keep improving them and improving them. Improve your service, improve your people, improve the product. If you can do that. So there's that one idea that I have generated more than $1 million in new revenues by taking that concept, expanding it like a horizon, and teaching hundreds of business owners how to install this greatness system within their business at every level, from planning, organizing, marketing, selling, customer service, business manager development, and so on. So now companies will walk out of my process and literally double the size of their business in 30 days. And when the economy is in a recession, their businesses are booming. People say, why? Well, because they've got great products. They've got great people. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a one concept like that. But you never know where you're going to find a concept like that. So you've got to be like a radar scan, screening the horizon, looking for those concepts, reading, listening, talking, asking questions. And every so often, boing, like the lightning strike in the cartoon, you get this lightning strike. One idea can save you 5 or 10 years of hard work.
So it's as you were saying, it's like you're reading. I think you've mentioned before the interview, you do about 3 hours of reading each day, so you're certainly constantly learning. But it's almost like separating. What that was the ability to separate out of just one idea out of all the millions of other ideas that you could have absorbed. So how do you make sure you incorporate the right idea? Is it the one that?
Well, you have to understand that there is a great power in the universe that is trying to get you the ideas you need to achieve your goals. So you go right back to, I want to increase my income. So I say to people, you want to double your income in the next 2 to 3 years? Everybody says yes. I say, well, that's a reasonable goal. A lot of people in this room will double their income in the next 2 or 3 years. So how do you do it? And I say, well, could you increase your productivity? Because your income is determined by the value of your contribution, the results that you get for others that they will pay you for. They say, well, yes, so could you increase your productivity by 1/10% in one day? That's 1/1000th in a day. Could you be 1/1000th more productive in one day? And people say, well, of course, you could probably be twice as productive in one day if you just focused on your most important task and did only that. But let's just say 1/1000th. We're not talking about 100%, we're talking about 1/1000th. Having done it for the first day, could you do it for the second day? Yes. Could you do it for the third day? I mean, if you were really determined. If you had a gun to your head, could you do it? Yes. So you could do it for 5 days. Well, that would be 1/2%. Do you think you could be 1/2% more productive over the course of an entire week? They say, well, of course. 1/2%. Could you do it for the next 4 weeks? Now, there's 13 4-week months in a year, 52 weeks divided by 4. So having done it for a month, that's 2% more productive in a whole month. Could you do it for the next month? And the answer is yes, because now you're getting into the rhythm of better productivity, you're learning new skills, you're managing your time better, and so on. If you do this for an entire year, at the end of a year, you'll be 26% more productive. That's without compounding. Could you do that? Could you do that if you really wanted to? If your life depended upon it, could you do it? People say, yes, of course. Well, having done it for the first year, could you do it for the second year? And they say, well, yes, of course, because now you're into the rhythm. It's easier and easier. It's like skiing. You go faster and faster and faster. You develop what is called the momentum principle of success. Could you do it for 10 years? Well, 26% compounded over 10 years is 1,004%. So you'd increase your productivity, performance, and output, and your results by 10 times in 10 years. So you'd increase your income 10 times as well. And people will line up at your door to hire you at 10 times what you're earning today, because you are so valuable and so productive. And people say, And I say, I just told you, that's what everybody does. Everybody who's earning 10 times as much as you did not do it in a big leap. If it's a big leap, it gets into the newspapers. But the people who are doing really well did it incrementally. It's called the law of incremental improvement, or the law of accumulation. Every great success is an accumulation of many little, tiny efforts that nobody ever sees or appreciates. But they start to accumulate like a snowball. They start to build up and build up. And over the course of years, the person is more and more productive. And when you're looking for ideas, you'll have ideas that will help you to be more productive. I could do this and I could do that. And you read this article. Oh, that's a great article. Sometimes you just find one idea that will cause your life to go off into a different direction, change it completely. But you never know what the idea is going to be, so you must bombard your mind with many ideas, just knowing that the right idea will come to you at the right time. And it always does. It always does if you will just keep being open to new ideas.
It's incredible because, but you've got to have those goals in the first place in order to actually then trigger those ideas.
Yes,
absolutely.
It's like you want to start off to a distant destination. Well, you've got to be clear about the destination. Then you find the way to get there. You find the right route, the wrong route. You change this, you stop this. You go here, you go there. But you've got to be clear about where you're going. It's like if you're going through London traffic. Oh my Lord! I mean, you have to be turning and twisting and turning and in and around and back and corners, everything else. But you know where you're going. So it's the final goal that organizes your entire trip.
If we can talk about now sort of time management, because we talked about sort of the vision, how to have inspirational goals, using the magic wand, not setting too low bar goals, high ones achieving. But let's talk about how you can actually implement this on a sort of day-by-day basis now. I mean, you wrote that the book Eat That Frog, phenomenal book. So what was the concept behind Eat That Frog, and one or two key time management lessons we can take away?
Well, I'll give you a couple of concepts and then one lesson that will double your income. Anybody here can double their income with this lesson. It's so simple, it's embarrassing. You'll walk away shaking your head. You say, that's so simple. Because all the great truths, by the way, are simple truths. I've studied philosophy going back to Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. All the great truths ever discovered are simple and easy to apply. They are not deep or complex. If it's complex, it may not be true. Okay, so what we know is that all of time management, and my books have sold millions of copies in 38 languages. I'm probably the best time management author, best-selling time management author in the world. And I don't even consider myself to be a specialist. But what I did is I began learning from the experts. I read every book. I took every course. I traveled around the country and sat in on seminars. I bought every time management system and used them so I understood how they worked. And then I put it all together into systems. And I have Eat That Frog is a short book. It's available down the street here. I just came from Bratislava. They have it in Slovak language. I stopped off in Prague for 4 hours. They have it in Czechoslovakian, Czech language. The head of the company that brought me in last November found a copy of this book and began to read it. And today he has 1,000 employees, and he attributes it all to this book. He said it transformed his life. He carries it like a Bible. It's written up and rewritten and wrinkled and everything else. He said it's such an amazing book because it basically says this, is decide upon your goals and your most important goal, and then every day begin your day with a list. The best time to write a list is the night before, because when you write a list the night before, the next morning you'll come up with all kinds of ideas for the list. It's like goals for the day. Then what you do is you look at your list and you say, if I could only do one thing on this list, what one activity, one task would I want to be sure to complete before I left town for a month? All right? And that becomes your most important task for the day. Now, the Eat the Frog concept comes from a story where they say the first thing that you do in the morning is you eat a live frog. you'll have the satisfaction of going through the day knowing that's probably the worst thing that can happen to you, is eating a live frog. And the two corollaries of this principle are, if you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the ugliest one first. Now, the frog is your biggest task. It's the one you're most likely to procrastinate on. It's also the one that will have the greatest positive impact on your career if you do it now. And so if you have 2 really important tasks, do the most important one. We say do the worst first. Do the biggest, ugliest one. And the second corollary is that if you have to eat a frog at all, it does not pay to sit and look at it for too long. So what you do is you start on that task. Now, when I've done this talk, or part of this talk, for corporations, very often they will go out and they will have brass frogs made up for all their executives. And the brass frog sits on the executive's desk. And it sits there so when they come into work, the first thing they see is the frog. Or they plan their day and they put the frog on top of the plan. First thing they see is the frog, and it reminds them, start and do the worst first. Do the task that has the biggest ramifications first. And then discipline yourself to work single-mindedly at that task. No matter what happens, if you get pulled away, keep coming back to the task like a gyroscope keeps coming back to center. Keep on that task, because you've now decided that everything else is a relative waste of time except this task. It doesn't mean they're a waste of time, but relative or in comparison with this task, everything else is secondary or worse. If you can do that and develop the habit of doing that, you will double your productivity the first day, and it will just continue to increase for the rest of your career. You will be so productive, you'll get so much done, you'll get more responsibilities, you'll get more opportunities. But here's the wonderful thing. Everybody wants to feel like a winner. Everybody wants to feel like a winner. So how do you get the winning feeling? Simple answer, you win. Okay. How do you win? Well, you cross the finish line first. Now, fortunately, in life, what successful people do, and I learned this after many years, it's so important, is they set up finish lines for themselves that they can cross. And so, if you complete a task of any value, it's like winning a little bit, and you feel like a winner. You start, you work, you complete the task. Even if all you do is wash your car and clean out the inside, you stand back, you feel happy. Because whenever you win, your brain releases endorphins. And endorphins are called nature's happy drug. And they make you feel happy. And your self-esteem goes up. And your self-confidence goes up. And you feel happier and more personable. You're actually a more charming person, believe it or not. When you set up a task and you complete it, you feel like a winner. Your endorphins go up. Your self-esteem improves. Your self-confidence goes up. Now, if you have a list of tasks to do, and you choose to do your most important task, and you complete it, you get a rush. It's called an endorphin rush, like that, and your brain releases endorphins which flood your system and make you actually feel exhilarated. You almost laugh out loud. You're happy. Your heart rate goes up. You're smiling. Sometimes you will stay and will work late at night to complete a task, and you get it done at 2 or 3 in the morning, and you finish it, and even though you should be exhausted, you're happy. You can't sleep. You're walking around. You watch television. Because you feel great. So what do winners do? Is they recreate this feeling over and over until it becomes a positive addiction. Now, a positive addiction is a very interesting subject. You can get a negative addiction to an illegal drug, or you can develop a positive addiction to endorphins. And positive addictions are fed by setting and completing important tasks, tasks that have an important role in your life. People say, well, don't you lose your spontaneity if you're always working on top tasks? No, you're happy all the time, and you are respected and esteemed by the people around you, and you feel proud, and you have a positive self-image, and people like you, and you earn more money. What's to complain about that? So therefore, it's a very simple thing, and that's why the book transforms people's lives. It takes them from rags to riches. Make a list. Identify your most important task, start on that, and stay with it until it's done. Now, I said I would give you a formula. I'll give my friends a formula here. I call it the AB formula. And the AB formula says simply this. If all the work you have to do, there are 2 types of tasks. There are A tasks that move you toward your most important goals, doubling your income, improving your lifestyle, increasing your sales and marketing. There are B tasks that do not move you towards your goals. Conversations, playing with the internet, reading the paper, going for lunch. In many cases, they move you away from your goals. So here's the rule. Do only A tasks. do not do B tasks at all. If you will do only A tasks, the tasks that move you toward what you say you want, only those tasks, and then you do the tasks that move you the fastest toward what you want, your most important task, you will have a wonderful life. But most people, 80% or more of people, spend their entire days on B tasks. Tasks that are fun, small, irrelevant, useless, make no contribution to their careers, and they don't understand why 10 years have gone by and their income has gone up at the rate of inflation. Whereas the people who've been working on A tasks, their income goes up and up and up. People eagerly pay them more money because they are so valuable to the company.
Actually, I remember you talking about an hourly rate and calculate what your hourly rate is, and therefore only do things that justify that hour. Can you just reiterate that point? Because it's linked, isn't it?
Well, we find that the average Brit, average German, average French person works about 1,600 hours a year. Average executive or business owner works about 2,000 hours a year. So what you do is you take your annual income and you divide it by 2,000. So let's say you're earning 100,000 pounds a year. Divided by 2,000, that means that you're earning 50 pounds an hour. This is your hourly rate over time. You can even include all your benefits and pensions and so on. But whatever it is, just let's say your hourly income is 50 pounds an hour. That means by law, the Ricardo's law, David Ricardo, the British economist, law of comparative advantage, is you don't do anything that pays less than $50 an hour. You only do things that pay you $50 an hour or more, or that people would pay you 50 quid an hour or more to do. And everything else you delegate. If there's something that someone else can do for 10 pounds an hour, you hire somebody to do that. 20 pounds an hour, 30 pounds an hour, you keep hiring people who can do things, tasks, at a lower hourly rate than yourself. Now here's the great discovery, and this again is life-changing. I call it the law of three. The law of three says that no matter how many things you do, how many tasks you do in a week or a month, and there's usually 20 or 30, 3 of those tasks account for 90% of your value. Only 3. And you make a list of all of your tasks, and I do this with my business owners, and I have them go through this, and they're astonished. And they double their income within 30 days. Because I ask them the 3 magic questions. Magic question number 1. If you could only do one thing on this list, one task on this list, all day long, which one task would have the greatest positive impact on your career? Which one task? Well, it'll usually pop. It'll jump out at you. So you put a circle around it. Then you say, if you could only do 2 things all day long, which would be number 2? And you put a circle around that. If you could only do 3 things all day long, which would be number 3? Put a circle around that. And suddenly, it's almost like all these other tasks fade. Like in a camera shoot, in a movie, they fade, and those 3 tasks are sitting there, like those 3 magic tasks, and you realize, oh my God, those are my big 3. Everything else is secondary. Everything else can be done by someone else, or done later, or not done at all. And then you focus on the 3. So here's the rule for doubling your income, and doubling it again, and doubling it again. Do fewer things, but do more important things, and do them more often and get better at them. Repeat. Do fewer things, the big 3. Do more important things. Do more of them. Spend more of your day working on those 3 tasks, and then get better at those tasks so you can get more of them done faster at a higher level of quality. If you will practice the law of 3, you'll transform your life. If you combine that with the eat the frog and work on your most important task, the one that can contribute the most value, and you can do that until it becomes a habit, just automatic. You get up in the morning and you just start work on your most important task, and you say, no, I don't do that. I don't do little tasks. Those are not my job. People say, what about this, what about that? I say, excuse me, I'm management, not labor. I do management tasks. I do my big 3. Labor does all these other things. They go, ho, 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 ho. So you, person who's watching this right now, is your management, not labor. Think of yourself as management and do your 3 tasks. If you can do that until it becomes a habit, you're going to conquer the world.
If we can talk about sales now, because you mentioned earlier about the fact that companies have really got to make sure, or you've got to make sure your product is exceptionally good. So if you've got an exceptionally good salesperson watching this right now and they think their product is average at best, what advice would you give to them? Should they just leave and go and find a company where the product is good, or should they scream at management that they need to incrementally improve their product, do you think?
Well, they should probably have their managers look at the first part of this interview. The second part is, if you're in sales, as I was for many years, you don't really have a choice over the product. You have to assume that your company has produced a good product or service and they have priced it well in a competitive market. So your job is to sell more of it. And this brings us to the great breakthrough of the 21st century, is that all sales in the 21st century are relationship sales. They're relationship sales, which means that people do not buy the product or service, they buy how they feel about the person selling it. And then the product or service becomes important. So the first job of the sales professional is to take the time to develop a relationship of trust and credibility with the prospect, sincerely. We say step one is to separate prospects from suspects. A prospect is someone who needs it, who wants it, who can afford it, and who can use it. And they have all of those needs now. Yeah. A suspect is someone who may need it or want it sometime in the future. Don't spend all of your time, or any of your time, speaking to people who don't have a need for what you're selling in the short-term future. So you ask them some questions. What are you doing now, and how is that working, and what are your plans for the future? If they say, well, we're perfectly satisfied and we don't have any money and business is terrible and we're not making any changes, and you say, great, you have a wonderful day, and here's my business card, and call me if ever things change. And you keep looking for people who have a need. We say that if you're selling fire extinguishers and a person's hair is on fire, that's a good prospect. They need your product, and they need it now, and they need it immediately. And so there's a whole series of things we teach on how to identify the best prospects, how to find them, how to approach them, and so on. The second thing is to build credibility with them. In sales and in life, credibility is everything. Your trustworthiness, your believability, how much I can trust you, how much confidence I feel in dealing with you, is the most important single factor, not only as a salesperson, but as a human being. And so you will find that your very best relationships in life are people with whom you have this perfect trust relationship. Your spouse, your best friends, your best customers. You have a relationship. I work with people on multi-million-dollar deals whom I've never met on the telephone or by email because we have a trust relationship. And we can enter into agreements, and we can make commitments, and we can actually spend money and put in hours because we trust each other. There's no problem. And so trust between a customer and a salesperson is really important. And you build trust by asking questions. Not by talking about your company or your service, by asking really good questions and listening closely to the answers and working to understand your customer. One of the things I say is position yourself as a doctor of selling. Many salespeople kill the sale by walking in and saying, hello, I'm Brian Tracy, let me tell you about my product or service. That's like going into a party and saying, oh, you're a pretty girl, and jumping all over them. Wait. It's too soon. It's too soon to pounce. Most salespeople go in and pounce because they're nervous. Instead, what you do is you go slow. And what you say is I'd like to ask you a couple of questions and see if we can't help you achieve your goals in a cost-effective way. Would that be all right? People will relax if you offer to ask them questions and make no effort to sell at all. Because you don't even know if this is a prospect or a suspect yet. So if you start to sell before you are clear and before the customer is clear that a need exists, you'll kill the sale. So just go slow and ask questions about them. One of the things we teach our sales professionals is to prepare thoroughly for every meeting. Go on to Google, do whatever you need to do to find out everything you can about the prospect before you meet them for the first time. Remember, the first impression is lasting. And a customer today can tell if you're prepared or not within 30 seconds. If you walk in and you say, thank you very much for your time. I had no idea your company had been here for 33 years. You have 270 people and 12 branches, and your best-selling product is this or that, and it just won the quality award last year. I say, how do you know all this stuff? Well, I went to your website and I looked it up. And what do people put on their website? They put the things that they're most proud of. We call this their bragging page. They put things on their bragging page. So you go to their website and you'll learn the things that they are most proud of as a company. And if you feed it back to them and say, I looked at your website and wow, that's pretty good material. They say, gee, we can't even get our own people to look at our website, much less outside people. And you know what? Your credibility goes straight up, and their fears and skepticism and negativity goes straight down. And there's an inverse relationship between the two. As your credibility goes up, their fear goes down. Now, they start off with a high level of fear and skepticism. But as you begin to build credibility by doing your homework And then by asking good questions to fill in the answers and listening closely to the answers, they start to go, oh, I'm dealing with a professional. Thank heavens. So here's what I teach my professionals. I say, imagine that you are a doctor of selling. I have my diploma grantor here in my form of a magic wand, and I'm going to make all of you into doctors from now on. The only difference is that you make house calls. And other doctors in Harley Street, you have to go and see them, or wherever they are. So what does a doctor do anywhere in the world? A doctor follows 3 steps in a doctor relationship, doctor-patient relationship. The first step is the examination, where the doctor asks a lot of questions, takes tests, pulse, heart rate, blood pressure, and so on. And then they do tests, and then they sit down and they say, here are the results of our tests. This is the questioning process in selling as well. Here's the diagnosis. Here's what we think you need. Here's the situation that we think you have. And the customer says, yes, that sounds like what I have. That's what I need. The waiter says, this is what I would recommend for you based on what you want to eat. And you say, yeah, that sounds good. Then the prescription is, now here is what I suggest. And this is where you offer your product or service or close the sale. So it's always examination, diagnosis agreed upon, and prescription. What most salespeople do is they commit what we call sales malpractice, is they walk in and they go straight to prescription. And they start talking about what the product or service will do and how long their company's been in business and how long they... But the customer doesn't care about that. The customer only cares is, how will your product or service transform my life or work in some way? How will it change me? How will it help me or benefit me? And I don't even want to know that until I get to know you, and so I trust you, and you get to know me so that your recommendation has some value. Imagine if you went into a restaurant with many dishes and you say, what would you recommend? And they say, this and this. Well, don't you want to know what I like or what I want? Or, no, I don't know, everybody likes this. Well, that's how most salespeople sell. They just walk in, they assume that whatever somebody else bought, this person wants as well. So they start talking about the product. And that's the same as pouncing on a girl at a social gathering when you meet her for the first time. So don't do the pounce, just stop. And be prepared to go back a second time. Take notes carefully in a sales presentation and say, may I think about what you have said for a couple of days and come back to you with some ideas on how we might be able to help you. What is the customer going to say? The customer going to say, absolutely. What if a doctor does a complete examination, says, look, I'd like to get all of these results together and then see you again in about a week. Would that be all right? Of course. You start to shift your whole schedule. You are looking forward eagerly to hearing what the doctor has found out and what his recommendations or her recommendations would be. And this is the beginning of the relationship-based selling process. And people who sell like this earn 10 times as much as people who sell the other way.
Leadership, obviously a huge issue. We need more inspirational leadership out there. I actually went to your website, Tracy, not long ago, .com, and subscribed to your newsletters. Got 7, I think it was the 7 responsibilities of leaders.
Right.
If we can just start with what is the sort of the number 1 responsibility of a leader, or if there's any other things that highlights of those 7 that you'd like to shed.
Okay, remember the umbrella concept. Yes, I read all these books about leadership and be a leader and everything else, and I think a lot of them are nonsense. They're written by academics and they're written by consultants. A leader is a person who gets results, and their measure of leadership is how many results you get and how predictably you get results. And there is a wonderful osmotic process in our society, in the free market, in the private sector, is that if you get results at one level, you will be given higher responsibilities to get results at a higher level and a higher level. And when you look at the presidents, I was reading an article about the head of one of your diamond companies here in London. This man is a billionaire, and he started off working at a jewelry store sorting stones and talking to customers. He now is one of the great diamond merchants of the world. I think his name is, maybe it's Graf or something like that. But here's a man who started off, and he was able to get results dealing with customers across the counter. And then he was able to get results helping other people in the store. And then he's built up, and now he's one of the most respected and richest men in the world because he still gets great results. And getting results is learnable. You can learn to get lots of results. So that's the umbrella. And then we talk about the 7 responsibilities of leadership, and they're all based on getting results. And number 1 is to set and achieve business goals. This is the primary responsibility of the leader, is to set and achieve business goals. So you must be crystal clear about your goals. The top managers I know in many entrepreneurial businesses set goals for sales for every day. Some companies set goals, especially in retail, for sales for every hour. And they're looking at the numbers. And a fixation on the numbers that measure your progress towards your goals causes you to improve in those areas. So they say, oh, sales were down this hour. What can we do to make this hour, which is after lunch, which is a slow hour, how can we improve our sales at that time? Could we send out a special offer at 11 o'clock, which expires at 2? In other words, they're always thinking in terms of small time increments, but they're always thinking about their sales and profitability goals. So that is the number one thing, which you've heard me talk about before. Average managers are really unclear, and everybody around them is unclear. Key managers are crystal clear, and everybody around them is crystal clear about the goals. Everybody's pulling in the same direction, just like a sports team. They're very clear about what they have to do in soccer to make a goal. They don't run around the field and kick the ball here and there and shout at each other. No, they're absolutely laser focused on getting that ball into the net. And that's the job of the manager.
Yeah.
Nobody else is responsible for that.
Okay, great. Well, you also wrote a book on how the best leaders lead.
Yes.
Is there any key insight that we can take from that?
Well, my favorite word in management is clarity. My favorite word in life is clarity. The greater clarity you have with regard to what you're trying to accomplish, the faster you'll achieve it. Yeah. In fact, people with clear written goals and plans with priorities accomplish 10 times as much in life as people without. It's very simple. It's the 10 times factor. Then make sure that everybody that works with you is crystal clear about what job they're supposed to do. Be clear about your 3 most important tasks and help everybody else be clear about their 3 most important tasks. So you get everybody always working on the 3 most important things they can do. And you hire other people who can do the task at a lower rate than your best people. You free them up from small tasks so they can do the things that make the greatest contribution to your overall goals. Yeah. That's the job of the leader.
You mentioned Steve Jobs earlier in this interview, and we have other CEOs that are trying to model Steve Jobs and other, but for the aspiring CEOs or CEOs out there that are watching this video, is there any specific advice for them, or what you feel the best CEOs do? What is the sort of the job and activities of the best CEOs in the world?
Well, I studied this subject and written about it, but Jim Collins wrote a book, Good to Great, 5 years ago, still a top-selling book. And in that he identified the companies that go from good to great. And he found that they have 7 qualities. And one quality was what he called a level 5 leader. Yeah. And a level 5 leader was a person who's actually pretty easygoing, not an egomaniac. Is often the public doesn't even know who the president of this massive company is. But this person is very clear about their goals, very determined to make the company successful, and is very supportive of all the people around them and helps them. They know that if I cannot get other people to do the work, I have to do it. So what they do is they select people very carefully. When we talked about selection and delegation, so they'll select very good people, and the rule is get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus, and then get the right people in the right seats on the bus. This is Jim Collins' formula. And so that's what the leader does, is the leader focuses on finding the right people to put in the right seats on the bus, and then they will drive the company forward.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that, Brian. Brian, if we can talk about something that's slightly more personal, but still very encapsulating to everything you've been talking about today, and that's overcoming obstacles, visualization, and everything else. You've overcome cancer. It was last year, I believe, you were diagnosed with throat cancer. Can you just tell us about that story and maybe some of the lessons that you've learned along that journey?
Yeah. Well, I believe in having regular medical checkups. After the age of 40, you should have a checkup every year, because doctors can find things in a checkup that will not really even appear, especially blood tests and so on, not even appear for several years. So regular checkups can add about 8 to 10 years to your life. Well, I got so busy for 2 or 3 years, I never went to a doctor. I finally had a little sniffle that didn't go away, so I went to my doctor for my medical checkup. And he looked in my throat. He said, looks like you have an infection. Let me give you some antibiotics. Come back in a week. So I did. He came back. I said, it's not an infection. The infection's cleared up. He said, I'm afraid you're going to have to change your life. You have cancer. This is an internist, very smart doctor. And he said, I'm going to send you to an expert who will do a biopsy just to make sure that we're correct. So he did, and the biopsy came back, and the MRI, and the PET scan, and the CT scan showed that I had a cancer about this size, the size of a lime, on the back of my throat. Now, as a speaker, as anybody, but as a speaker, this was frightening to find out you have throat cancer. Fortunately, it was not on my larynx. It was not on my voice pipe. It was on the side. So I said, well, what is the course of treatment? And they said, well, first of all, we start off with chemotherapy to shrink it, and then surgery to remove the scar tissue, and then radiation to kill any microscopic cells. So I began to read copiously, learn from the experts. I went onto the internet. I went to the American Cancer Institute. I checked my cancer against other cancers and predictions. I joined a support group. I read books on the subject. I got second opinions from other doctors. And then I finally came to the conclusion, trust your doctors. These people do this all day, and each of my doctors, there's 3, one for chemotherapy, one for radiation, one for surgery. And this is called your team. Yeah. When you get cancer, they say, select your team carefully, and the team works together, just like they talk on a regular basis, like the 3 people heading a company. They talk about you as a patient on a regular basis. They analyze your treatment. They decide how to change it. Each person is individual. Each course of treatment is individual. And so you trust your doctors, and you do what they tell you to do. Get second opinions to give yourself comfort. Learn everything you can, and so I did. I said, what's the likelihood of success? And they said, most people who go through this go through it once, and they are cured, and it never happens again. If you remember, the actor Michael Douglas came down with throat cancer about the same time, and it was more serious than mine. And he just went through his course of treatment. He trusted his doctors, and today he's back to a normal life and making movies. So the best advice I can give you is be well informed. Don't allow yourself to be put off base. And then trust your doctors. Your doctors have one goal in life, and that's to heal you, to cure you, to get rid of the cancer so that it never comes back again. And so that's what I did. And I made a movie of it, which is now on the internet. And I think it's called Conquering Cancer. So if you go to briantracy.com, and if you or anyone in your family has cancer or learns that they have cancer, go and watch this movie, because people are saying transforms their confidence in their ability to deal with cancer and to deal with a family member who has cancer. The 4 most important words ever discovered in history are the words, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. It's true at all times, for all people, under all circumstances, in all situations, whether it's the economy or whether it's a relationship or whether it's cancer. This too shall pass, one way or another.
If we can just end with one piece, what we call the one piece of advice game. That's just one piece of advice for in the following scenarios, if we can.
Right.
So a salesperson wanting to double their income.
Well, it's very simple. Double the amount of time that you spend face-to-face with customers from this day forward. Use every single bit of intelligence, brilliance, time management, planning, goals, efficiency to double the amount of face time. Yeah. Your sales are directly in proportion to the amount of time you spend face-to-face with qualified prospects. The average salesperson works 90 minutes a day, in that they are face-to-face with customers 90 minutes a day on average. Half are below, half are above. If you want to double your income, spend 180 minutes per day, which is 3 hours out of 8, each day, face-to-face with customers, and by the law of probabilities, you will double your income. And I've taught this for years, and everyone who does it is astonished. They double their income within less than a month.
Excellent. Number 2, somebody in a job that they're not particularly passionate about, but they're afraid of leaving because of the financial commitments that they have at home.
All right. Then what you do is you imagine that you are financially independent, that you have 20 million pounds in the bank, and simultaneously, you only have 10 years to live. You're going to enjoy superb health, but you have all the money that you need, and you have to work at something. You cannot be a layabout. So therefore, if you could work at anything, and you had all the money you needed, and you didn't want to waste any time, what career would you choose? If you could wave a magic wand and have all the talent and skill that you need to be successful in any field, what field would you choose for yourself? And then what you do is you just start to do some research on that field. Work in it part-time. Work in it for free. Read books and courses. Talk to people who are in it. And I have spoken to literally thousands of people over the years who did that and eventually changed out of their current job, sometimes within their same company, changed out of their current job where they weren't very satisfied into a new job that they loved, and they became a star at that new job. And virtually everybody can do this.
Yeah. It's very similar to that, but a lot of people want to learn, find their passion. A lot of people say you've got to go and do what you're passionate about. But people who haven't found their passion, what advice?
Well, this whole thing about find your passion is a motivational claptrap. The way that you find your passion is whatever job you have to do, throw your whole heart into it. And this has been discovered for centuries. Throw your whole heart into what you're doing, and you'll find out very quickly if this is the right work for you. If it's not, you won't get any excitement or happiness from it, so then change. Many people don't realize that until you throw your whole heart into something, you don't get anything back. And so what they do is they say, well, I'll try this and see if it works, and if it does. I read this wonderful line 2 weeks ago. Every so often I come across a great line. It said this, is work is never fun until you're good at it. And so when you begin at a job, it may take you a year or two of hard work to become good at what you're doing. Then it becomes fun. Then it becomes your passion. Yeah. And many people say, oh, find my passion, find my passion. No, do your job right well and do it really well and get really good at it. And if when you're really good at it, if you still don't enjoy it, then look for something else.
Excellent. Somebody who knows what they should do from an intuitive perspective, but they're feeling the fear and they're not taking action.
All right. The greatest obstacle to success, to answer your question, is the fear of failure combined with the fear of rejection. The fear of failure is, what if I lose my time, lose my money? The fear of rejection is, what if I make a mistake and somebody disapproves of me? We are obsessed with the opinions of others, and we're obsessed with failure. Now, we find that the great discovery in all of human history is that you become what you think about most of the time. Top people think about their goals all the time, and surprise, surprise, they create wonderful lives for themselves. Average people think about television and sports and socializing, and surprise, surprise, that's what they're doing 10 or 20 years later. You also become what you say to yourself. So you can have an enormous impact on your emotions of confidence and courage and competence by speaking to yourself in a positive way. And the magic words discovered in psychology are the words, I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. So whenever you think of something that you'd like to do and you're fearful, say, hey, wait a minute. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. And as you say, I can do it, your courage and confidence goes up and your fears go down in inverse proportion. And then at a certain point, you will overflow and you'll just take action. And then all of your fear disappears.
Excellent. And the final one, sir, a CEO that wants to become a world-class CEO, even better than Jack Welch was.
Well, then what you do is you focus on getting results through people, which is be very, very clear about the goals that you want to achieve and set big goals. Jack Welch wanted to make General Electric either first or second in every category in the world. And that was his rule, is we will be first or second, whether it's turbine engines or whether it's powered hydroelectric dams or nuclear reactors, we'll be number one or number two in every field, or we'll get out of it. And so every single manager had a job. Is if we're number 5, your job is to get to us to 1 or 2 within a certain period of time, or we will discontinue the field and maybe discontinue you as well. So everyone in his company, all the officers were focused on winning battles, getting to 1 or 2. The second thing is be very, very sensitive and considerate to the people that you work with. All the best managers, they're firm, but they're very caring about their people. They're very thoughtful, they're respectful, they are courteous, they treat people well, and people feel happy when they go to work for these people. And as a result, they produce twice as much as they would anywhere else.
Brian Tracy, it's been a personal goal of mine to be sitting in front of you like I have been today. So I'm absolutely honoured from the bottom of my heart to have you here, sir, and thank you very, very much indeed for your insight and your wisdom, as always.
Thank you, Anthony. It's been a pleasure.